Reading from Nectar of Devotion, chapter entitled Expressions of Love for Krishna. Intense emotion. When Krishna returned from the forest of Vrindavan, Mother Yashoda was so emotionally from seeing her son that milk began to flow from her breast. This is an instance of emotion caused by seeing a dear object. In the 10th canto, 23rd chapter, verse 18 of Srimad Bhagavatam, Shukadev Goswami informs King Parikshit, "My dear king, the wives of the Brahmanas were usually very much attached to the glorification of Krishna, and they were always anxious to get an opportunity to see him. Because of this, when they heard that Krishna was nearby, they became very anxious to see him and immediately left their homes. This is an instance of emotional activity caused by the presence of someone very dear. When Putana, the demoniac witch which was struck down and killed by Krishna, Mother Yashoda was struck with wonder and began to cry emotionally, 'Oh, what is this? What is this?' When she saw that her dear baby Krishna was playing on the chest of the dead demoniac woman, Mother Yashoda, at a loss at what to do, began to walk this way and that. This is an instance of being emotional on account of seeing something ghastly. When Krishna uprooted the two Arjuna trees and Yashoda heard the sound of the trees crashing down, she became overcome with emotion and simply stared upward, being too bewildered to know what else to do. This is an instance of being emotional from hearing a tumultuous sound. When there was a forest fire in Vrindavan, all the coward men assembled together and desperately appealed to Krishna for protection. This is an instance of emotion caused by fire. The whirlwind demon known as Trinavarta was once carried Krishna off from the ground and blew him around, along with some very big trees. At that time, Mother Yashoda could not see her son, and she was so disturbed that she began to walk this way and that. This is an instance of emotion caused by severe wind. Shri Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu ki jai, jai Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 8, Chapter 4. Gajendra returns to the spiritual world. Which verse 2?
2, 3, and 4.
Okay. Thank you. Should I just say the first 2 or 3 verses myself and then
I think those two are easy as long as one verse is before.
okay. I'll just do this one all in one. Nidurdundubaya divya gandharva nandrutu jagu rishayas charana siddhas dushtavu purushottamam. There was a beating of kettle drums in the heavenly planets. The inhabitants of Gandharva Loka began to dance and sing, while great sages and the inhabitants of Charna Loka and Siddha Loka offered prayers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead Purushottama. Verse 3 and 4. Yo sograha savai satya Paramascharya Rupadrik Mukto Devala Shapena Huhu Gandharva Sattamaha Pranamya Shiradashisha Saradashisham Uttama Shlokam Avayam Agayata Yashodhama Kirtanya Gunasatkatam Yoso Graha Savai Sadhya Paramascharya Rupadrik Mukto Devala Shapena Huhu Gandharva Sattama
Uhu Gandharva Sattama
Pranamya Siradashisham
Pranamya Siradashisham
Uttama Shlokam Avayam
Uttamaslokamakriyam
Agayata Yashodama
Agayata Yashodhama
Kirtanya Gunasatkatam
Kirtanya Gunasatkatam
Yoso Graha Savai Satya
Yoso Grahasvai Satya
Paramascharya Rupadrik
Brahmacharya Rupadrik
Mukto Divala Shapena
Mukto Devasapena
Puhu Gandharva Sattama
Uhu Gandharva Sattama
Pranamya Siradaitisha
Pranamya Siradashisham
Uttama Shlokamavayam
Uttamaslokamakriyam
Agayata Yashodhama
Agayata Yashodhama
Kirtanya Gunasatkatam
Kirtanya Gunasatkatam Yoso Graha Savai Satya
Yoso Graha Savai Satya
Brahmacharya Rupadrik
Paramascharya Rupadre
Mukto Devala Shapena
Mukto Devala Shapena
Uhu Gandharva Sattama
Uhu Gandharva Sattama
Pranamya Shirasadisham
Paramascharya
Uttama Shlokam Agayam
Uttama Shlokamavayam
Agayata Yashodhama
Agayata Yashodhama
Chaitanya Gunasatkatam Yosuya Savai Satya
Vajrava Satya
Paramascha Rupadrik
Paramascha Rupadrik
Muktadeva Gashapena
Muktadeva Gashapena
Gandharva Sattama Pranamya Shirasadisham
Pranamya Shirasadisham
Uttamaslokam Avyayam
Uttama Abhayam
Agayata Yashodhama
Agayata Yashodhama
Kirtanya
Kirtanya Gunasatkatam
Yoso Graha Savai Satya
Yoso Graha Savai Satya
Paramascha Rupadrik
Paramascharya Rupadre
Mukto Devala Shapena
Mukto Devala Sapena
Gandharva Sattama
Gandharva Sattama
Pranamya Shirasadisham
Paramya Siradisham
Uttamaslokam Avyayam
Uttama Shlokam Avayam
Gayata Yashodhama
Agayata Yashodhama
Kirtanya Gunasatkatam
Kirtanya Gunasatkatam Yaha,
Yaha
he who,
Ihu
aso, that, graha, became a crocodile, saha, he, why, indeed, sadhya, immediately, parama, very nice, ascharya, wonderful, rupadrik, possessing the form of his original Gandharva position. Muktaha was delivered. Devala Shapena by the cursing of Devala Rishi. Huhu, whose name was formerly Huhu. Gandharva Sattamaha, the best of the Gandharva Loka. Pranamya, offering his obeisances. Sirasa, by the head. Adisham, unto the Supreme Master. Uttama Shlokam, his worship by the choicest verses. Avyayam, who is the Supreme Eternal. Agayata, he began to chant. Yashadhama, the glories of the Lord. Kirtanya Gunasatkatam, whose transcendental pastimes and qualities are glorious. Translation. The best of the Gandharvas, King Huhu, having been cursed by Devala Muni, had become a crocodile. Now having been delivered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he assumed a very beautiful form as a Gandharva. Understanding by whose mercy this had happened, he immediately offered his respectful obeisances with his head and began chanting prayers just suitable for the Transcendental Lord, the Supreme Eternal, who is worshipped by the choicest verses. Please repeat. The best of the Gandharvas, King Huhu, having been cursed by Devala Muni, had become a crocodile. Now having been delivered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he assumed a very beautiful form as a Gandharva. Understanding by whose mercy this had happened, he immediately offered his respectful obeisances with his head and began chanting prayers just suitable for the Transcendental Lord, the Supreme Eternal, who is worshipped by the choicest verses. Purport by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The story of how the Gandharva had become a crocodile will be described later. The curse by which the Gandharva took this position was actually a blessing, not a curse. One should not be displeased when a saintly person curses someone, for his curse indirectly is a blessing. The Gandharva had the mentality of an inhabitant of the celestial planetary system, and for him to become an associate of the Supreme Lord would have taken millions of long years. However, because he was cursed by Devala Rishi, he became a crocodile, and in only one life was fortunate enough to see the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face, and be promoted to the spiritual world to become one of the Lord's associates. Similarly, Gajendra was also delivered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead when he was freed from the curse of Agastya Muni. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuranmritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadammayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. The best of the Gandharvas, King Huhu, had been cursed by Devala Muni, had become a crocodile. Now, having been delivered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he assumed a very beautiful form as a Gandharva. Understanding by whose mercy this had happened, he immediately offered his respectful obeisances with his head and began chanting prayers just suitable for the Transcendental Lord, the Supreme Eternal, who is worshipped by the choicest verses. So, we can see in this chapter how the Lord delivered Gajendra, the elephant, and also he delivered the crocodile, who was formerly a Gandharva. And this actually is very interesting because although both of them were cursed by sages, the curses actually became benedictions, so by which they could actually have darshan of the Lord and go back to God in that particular lifetime, which would have taken millions of lives otherwise. So, although the saintly persons may curse, but the curse is not a vindictive sort of pushing you down, but actually raising you up. Even their curses raise the devotees up, the living entities up. Never mind the blessings. So even the curse of a saintly person elevates the living entities. So we definitely don't want curses, but we want blessings. But even a curse is sometimes a benediction for the living entities to go upward, to go towards the Supreme Lord. So the saintly persons are very, very merciful, and they always look for the good of the living entity. So within the curse, they actually are trying to elevate that personality so that they can actually rise above this material world and go back to Godhead. And we just had the month of Damodar where Nalakavera and Manigriva were cursed by Narada Muni for being intoxicated and not covering their body in his presence, and also because they were more intoxicated by pride, being the sons of Kuvera. But you can see how Narada Muni's curse became a great blessing, that although they became trees, Arjuna trees, they got darshan of Krishna personally, and in that one lifetime they were able to go back to the heavenly planets, but from there they would go back to the spiritual world. So here, the Gandharva king Huhu, he went back to the heavenly planets, but from there he went back to Godhead. So to finish that life of a Gandharva and then go back to Godhead. So both are very instructive that we need the association of saintly persons, one way or the other. Whether we get their curse or their blessing is beneficial for us. So association of devotees is very, very powerful, especially great saintly persons like Narada Muni and these great rishis. And it's interesting to find that even on the heavenly planets there are elephants and crocodiles. It's not that they're just demigods and beautiful bodies, but they actually have got other living entities. So we may think, oh, let me go to the heavenly planets, but how do we know what kind of body we're going to achieve, what result we're going to get? So it seems like there are other living entities on the heavenly planets, such as elephants and crocodiles. And also, it seems like destiny, because both of these living entities were cursed to become animals, and they both seemed to meet together, had a fight, and they both got delivered at the same time. So it's just an amazing, I wouldn't say coincidence, but an amazing arrangement by the Lord, that when Krishna does one thing, so many things get achieved. It's not just like one thing gets achieved. So from this pastime, so many things came out from this one pastime. Both entities that were cursed, both personalities that were cursed got delivered. And also the demigods were humbled. They could understand that they're not the supreme. Also, we could see how the importance of chanting mantras and devotional service in itself helps us in our next life, whether we know it or not. That devotional service is never lost, and the importance of chanting the holy names, chanting mantras in praise of the Lord will always come beneficial in any lifetime. And also the story of these personalities, how they were cursed because of some offense to great saintly persons. So we can see how offending Vaishnavas can degrade us into a lower life form. But then again, we can be benedicted by them, and we can rise above this material world back to the spiritual world, to have a spiritual body like Gajendra and Hu. They will attain a spiritual body at the end of it. So Vaishnava is very kind, and they try to elevate the living entities. So even if there's an accidental fall, then the Lord is very kind and helps the living entities because of that association they had with great personalities. It's not of their own self that they, maybe not of their own devotion, but the devotion of the rishis, they got elevated. And so this chapter gives the whole story of how both of them go back to the spiritual world. It's a nice introduction, which I can read. Can you put that on the board? This introduction, this part of the chapter. Does that come up? It's just a summary of the chapter. So I think it would be good to read. Okay, so the summary of the chapter is this fourth chapter describes the previous birth of Gajendra and the crocodile. It tells how the crocodile became a Gandharva and how Gajendra became an associate of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There was a king on the Gandharva planet whose name was Huhu. Once this king Huhu was enjoying with women in the water, and while enjoying, he pulled the leg of Devala Rishi, who was also taking a bath in the water. Upon this, the sage became very angry and immediately cursed him to become a crocodile. King Huhu was very sorry when cursed in that way, and he begged pardon from the sage, who in compassion gave him the benediction that he would be freed from when Gajendra was delivered by the personality of Godhead. Thus the crocodile was delivered when killed by Narayan. When Gajendra, by the mercy of the Lord, became one of the Lord's associates in Vaikuntha, he got 4 hands. This achievement is called Sarupya Mukti, or the liberation of receiving a spiritual body exactly like that of Narayan. Gajendra in his previous birth had been a great devotee of Lord Vishnu. His name was Indrajumna, and he was the king of the Tamila country. Following the Vedic principles, this king retired from family life and constructed a small cottage in the Malaya Chal hills, where he always worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead in silence. Agastya Rishi, along with many disciples, once approached King Indrajumna's ashram. But because the king was meditating on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he could not receive Agastya Rishi properly. Thus the Rishi became very angry and cursed the king to become a dull elephant. In accordance with this curse, the king was born as an elephant, and he forgot all about his previous activities in devotional service. Nonetheless, in his birth as an elephant, when he was dangerously attacked by the crocodile, he remembered his past life in devotional service and remembered a prayer he had learned in that life. Because of this prayer, he again received the mercy of the Lord. Thus, he was immediately delivered, and he became one of the Lord's 4-handed associates. Shukadev Goswami ends this chapter by describing the good fortune of the elephant. Shukadev Goswami says that by hearing the narration of Gajendra's deliverance, one can also get the opportunity to be delivered. Shukadev Goswami vividly describes this, and thus the chapter ends. So it's not even just beneficial for Gajendra that he got delivered, but actually anyone who hears this narration of Gajendra's deliverance also gets the opportunity to be delivered. So it's such a powerful chapter that is recommended to recite it in the morning and or the evening, so that one can actually get delivered. So we can see that devotees are, even their stories, their pastimes, help deliver other people, help other living entities, not just themselves. And it's very encouraging to know that such a deliverance is possible by the mercy of the Lord. That we have to be very sincere and humble, and stop trying to be the controller, and accept Krishna as the supreme controller and the proprietor of everything. And this way we can receive the same benediction that Gajendra received. Because it's actually depending on our mood, so not so much on our actions, but on our mood, because Gajendra's mood was in total helplessness. He was calling out for the Lord in full surrender. And that's what attracted the Lord. So this humility attracts the Lord, because he could have said all these verses and prayers with pride. That wouldn't have the same effect. It's not just the prayers, but actually it's the mood in which he prayed which attracted the Lord. Because in his previous life he'd said these prayers too, but he wasn't delivered then. But now when he said these prayers in this totally humble mood, free from pride, free from desire to be the controller, then fully surrendering to the Lord, then he was delivered, because this humility attracts the Lord. So so from this pastime, we can see that the mood of prayer is very important. We can recite prayers, but we shouldn't be just reciting them without attention, without, with feeling, without feeling. That's how we should be chanting the holy names. That's how we should be chanting prayers, in the mood of surrender, the mood of humility. Like said in the Nectar instruction, it says advancement in Krishna consciousness is dependent on our attitude. So if we have a humble attitude, then we will make advancement very quickly. But if we're proud, then Krishna will have to arrange it that we get free from that pride first. And that might be quite a painful experience, but eventually we have to become humble one way or another. And actually, the material world is so arranged that it makes us humble, because as we get older, we lose our capacity to perform as well as we did when we were young. We don't hear so well, we don't see as well, we don't remember much. Our memory gets, we have loss of memory. So everything becomes decreased. Our senses are not so strong and alert. They're not so, and old age brings about all these dysfunctions in the body. Our body becomes dysfunctional eventually. Our capacity to remember or to see or hear things becomes less and less. So we actually, it's arranged so that we start becoming humble, even materially. So, and then also spiritually, we start realizing actually we're not in control, because we're not in control of stopping our aging. We're not in control of, if we were in control, we wouldn't have this old age. We would stay young forever if we were in control. So we realize as we get older that we're not in control, and this body is just like a machine that's slowly decaying with time. And so it forces us to be humble. So this is actually a very good thing in one sense, because eventually we will become humble and accept and surrender to the Lord. So is there any questions or comments at this point?
So in the pastime, it doesn't look like the crocodile gets a lot of benefit.
Well, we got delivered from that crocodile body and got back to being a Gandharva.
But he just went back to being a Gandharva, didn't he?
No, but it's like he finished that life as a Gandharva and went back to Godhead, because otherwise it wouldn't say that in this verse that
Oh, so he went back to God. Oh, that's what I was wondering.
yeah, he also went back to Godhead. It says in this, let's see if I can find it. It's like Nalakova and Manigriva, they went back to the heavenly planet, but from there they went back to Godhead. It's the same thing.
Because the benediction is even if you hear the pastime. So I imagine if you're in the pastime.
Yeah. Yeah, it comes up. But yeah, he does get delivered as well.
So what's the mistake that we can make as devotees in hearing the pastime but missing the point?
Can you repeat that, please?
We may be hearing the pastime but not really taking it to heart. We just hear, though, this is an interesting story. Like watching a film, and then everyone goes away and they're entertained by it. But what would be the real indication that it had its desired effect?
Well, we learn from this story what to do and what not to do. We should be careful when dealing with Vaishnavas, so we don't, become degraded. And also how powerful devotional service is, that although we may become degraded, still Krishna, because of that devotional service, that helps us in our next life. Like King Bharat becomes a deer, but he remembers how he fell down and he didn't want to perform those. He was being very careful in the form of a deer. So, and in the next life he became Jad Bharat. And there's many stories where there's devotees being cursed. like King Chitraketu becomes cursed by Parvati to become Vritrasura. Then there's even Daksha curses Narada Muni, that you can't stay in one place, although it's Daksha, still it had an effect. And that was a benediction because Narada Muni was traveling everywhere. So although there's many curses throughout the Bhagavatam, actually like Parikshit Maharaj has been cursed by Shringi, the Brahmin boy. The whole story begins with Parikshit being cursed. That's why the Bhagavatam was spoken, but that's a benediction that, although he was cursed, he could have counter-cursed it, but he just accepted the curse as a benediction that he could now become free from this material world and hear Srimad Bhagavatam. So it seems like all the curses in the Bhagavatam are in one sense benedictions. Even although they get the body of a demon or a degraded body in the next life, they actually become elevated and go back to Godhead. So, is that okay?
So a devotee could think, okay, well, it obviously doesn't really matter if I offend someone because it will work out good for me. So I can just go around offending devotees. I'll get cursed and then I'll go back to Godhead that way after being a crocodile.
But, do you want to spend that much time in the material world getting cursed and then taking the form of an animal or some other living beings? And then how do you know that you still have a free will as well? You still have free choice. So even if you do get the opportunity to become a devotee, you may not take it, you may not accept it because you still have free will.
I'll take my chances.
So you always have free will, and so even if you're born in a devotee family, you still have free will to become a devotee or not. And we see that. It's not like just because we're born in a devotee family, then we're automatically going to become a pure devotee in that lifetime. They may want to experience some other things, so they may give up their devotional service for a certain period of time. So we always have that free will, so we shouldn't think, oh, I'll do whatever I like and Krishna will protect me. That's just misusing the Lord's kindness. We shouldn't have that attitude. We should always be very careful because Krishna has given us this form, this human form of life, and which we can perform devotional service. And if we purposefully misuse it, and purposely, it's one thing if it's unintentional, if it's an accidental fall down, but if you intentionally, purposefully think, okay, let me offend Vaishnavas so I can be cursed and go back, I don't think it works like that. I think it depends on our attitude. And it may take millions of lifetimes before we get the opportunity again. Because of our attitude, we may not take up devotional service again for many lifetimes. So we always have the free will.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for your question. It seems like the free will is a bit of it's like it's good when we use it for the right purpose, but it also being misused. So it's like seems like maybe it's better to just get rid of free will and just fully depend on Krishna. But it's like
Krishna never takes that away from us. We have that slight, small independence to always have free choice to actually love him or not to love him. So Krishna doesn't take that away from us. So he doesn't force us to love him. So we always have that small free will to choose Krishna or Maya. And that's part of the whole process, that we want to use our free will in Krishna's service, not Maya's service. So,
it seems like the free will comes with responsibility, kind of like, because we are here, material world, we are given this free will, but also it's because we are we have these 4 defects, and naturally you're gonna make mistake if you're not associating with the right people and not in the right place. So I guess it's like maybe you have to come to conclusions, and maybe enough of this free will. I surrender to Krishna.
Yeah, we have to surrender to Krishna's desires and plans, because we don't know what is the plan of the Lord. But if we want to be part of that plan, then we surrender to whatever He wants, whatever the authorities want us to do. And that way we'll be safe. We'll know we're safe in that situation, that whatever we're doing is authorized, whatever we're doing is in the mood that we're trying to surrender to Krishna. And then Krishna will help. And God helps those who help themselves. So if we're trying to help ourselves become Krishna conscious, surrender, do the right things, then Krishna will help us. So because whatever karma, whatever body we have in this lifetime is because it's destiny from a previous lifetime, whatever activities we performed, what our attitude was in that lifetime. So whatever free will we used in our last life, we are reaping it in this life. So, and whatever we use our free will to do in this lifetime will determine the next lifetime. So there's always that free will, we want to do or not to do, want to serve Krishna, not to serve Krishna. And it's a very fine line, So we always have to be very wary that we're dealing with the material energy, which is very difficult to overcome. And Krishna says that this divine energy of mine is very difficult to overcome, but one who surrenders unto me can easily cross beyond it. So the only way we can get free from the illusory energy is to surrender to Krishna. Otherwise we'll be shackled like in a prison. The modes of material nature, illusion, temptations, our own lust, anger, greed, all these anarthas in our heart. And all these things can determine the result of what happens. But if you're sincere and serious, Prabhupada says that many times in his books, but if we're sincere and serious, then we'll make advancement. If we're duplicitous and pretending, if we're not honest, then that will take longer. Because whatever things we are blocking us from our advancement, Krishna's got to make some sort of arrangement so we can get free from that. Anartha. So whether it's pride or resentment or greed or lust, whatever it is, there is purification to get free from that. It's like, if you've got a diseased tooth, you have to go to the dentist and you have to get that tooth taken out. And it's painful, right, to extract something out of your mouth. And so when we have all these different things in our heart, these unwanted things in the heart, then Krishna's got to pull them out. It's going to be some sort of pain. The purification means there will be some sort of pain. But eventually, when we do get relief from that, then we'll be very happy, because when you get the tooth taken out and it's starting to heal, everything's better. But as long as that diseased tooth is in the mouth, then it's painful, and taking it out is painful. So, but the result is we will become free from that pain eventually. So, but it's not that spiritual life is not without anxiety, like we just read in the Nectar of Devotion. It's not like some sort of peaceful state, like in the Brahman, where there's no feelings, no emotions, nothing. Mother Yashoda is always in anxiety about Krishna. She's in anxiety. She's got emotions. There's so many things that are expressed in Nectar of Devotion to show us that spiritual life does not mean negation of emotions, but the spiritual emotions. It's not that it's just the material emotions that are reflections, perverted reflections of the spiritual emotions. So Mother Yashoda's emotions of anxiety for Krishna is spiritual. So anxiety in Krishna's service purifies us, whereas anxiety in material life destroys us. We get so stressed out, it really is not very good. But anxiety in spiritual life, anxiety in Krishna's service is actually purifying. So it's good for us. May not think like that, but actually that's the case. Prabhupada says that purification, like the anxiety purifies us so we can make advancement. So it's an acquired taste, but it is spiritual emotions are there, and spiritual anxiety is there. We're getting practice actually in this life to this anxiety for Krishna's service, anxiety to do it nicely for him, for his pleasure, is actually purifying us, and we're making advancement by it. Is that understanding?
Question.
The free will question.
I would not issues of free will.
Yeah.
Any last
In these, on the subject of free will, in these pastimes, we know that there's a certain sequence of events that have to take place. And on the one hand, it seems like the living entity has free will to make its choice. And at the same time, it seems to be that it fits in with some predetermined plan.
Well, the Bhagavatam is, of course, very special because it's all pastimes of the Lord, and it's to show others, for the purpose of showing other living entities, others, how to take shelter of Krishna, how to surrender to Krishna. So there's many pastimes like that, and it's orchestrated like that so that we can learn from it. But it's not that they didn't have free will. They still had free will. Every living entity has free will. But if devotees are surrendered to the Lord, then Krishna takes control, and he helps. So
So if he helps, does that mean that he says to the devotee in the heart, just accept this case, it'll be okay?
I don't know. But we can see how the devotee accepts the curses. They don't lose faith in the Lord. They don't try to counter curse. They just accept, and they accept that, and they try to see the opportunity to serve Krishna within that. Try to see the good in that curse. Just like Parikshit Maharaj, seeing the opportunity, now I can sit and hear, I've only got 7 days left to live. What's the most important thing I must do now? He didn't think, well, how can I counter curse this? How can I stop this curse? They don't waste their time like that. They think, well, they see that this is a problem, and so let's take shelter of Krishna. Let's surrender to Krishna. They don't start trying to avoid the curse or avoid the problems or the suffering. So that's the mood of a devotee. They see the opportunity to surrender to Krishna within that. Whatever comes, they see the good side of it and see the opportunity to serve Krishna within that. To surrender to Krishna and take shelter of him. Okay, should I stop now? Okay. Granth Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, ISKCON Guru Vrinda ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Golden Time Akashishta ki jai, Gaur Premanand, Gajendra Moksha Nila ki jai.
Jagannath Priya